Okay, welcome to our third week of Put Your Dream to the Test by John Maxwell. And we're so glad everybody could come and be a part. We like to kick everything off with a attitude of gratitude. So let's do that today. Bert, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, this morning, I just want to say how thankful I am for the Small Business Administration. So I have spent over the last 4 or 5 days literally on hold, probably 8 hours, trying to get through. The first time I called, I was caller number 1,267. Seriously, it's a real number.
Wow.
I didn't know you could have that many people on the phone waiting at a time. And 3.5 hours later, I had to get off the phone. Even though I got all the way down to number 320, I had to get off the phone. And then 2 days ago, I got back on, and I was caller number 987 at 7:45 in the morning. And about 10 o'clock, I finally got through and got to talk to them and got the ball rolling on all of these stimulus plans available for small businesses. So this morning, fingers crossed, we finally got our application in for the payroll protection plan for our small business, and hopefully that's all going to go through so we can keep on paying our employees and keeping their health benefits going and everything else. So I'm thankful, in these tough times, I'm thankful for all those people working at the SBA, because I can't even imagine what it's going to be like having to process, 100,000 applications in the first week. Mind-boggling to me, but I'm incredibly thankful to them. Tom, how about you?
Well, I'm thankful for our mailman, our mail person that keeps coming by and bringing us our mail. Thank the Lord, because without them and other folks like that are still providing services for us when so many things have been shut down. I just really appreciate that. And even yesterday, my wife and I were taking a walk, and we passed our mail person on the sidewalk there, and we were able to give her a greeting. And so I'm really appreciative of that.
That's awesome. Keith, how about you? What are you thankful for today?
Well, it might seem weird, but I'm kind of thankful for this shutdown time, because I'm able to go back now and settle down and get focused on what I need to be focused on, and not worrying about the business every single day for the last 40 years. I mean, it's focusing on this, on coaching. It's going to be good. It's going to get me back to back when I was a lot younger, reading and doing what I was supposed to be doing for goals. And it just got waylaid with all the business. And now I have time to get back to it.
Wow, when you were a lot younger, so when you were like 18, because you're only like 35, so
Yeah.
can't go back much further than that. That's great. That's awesome. Travis, how about you today?
A couple of things. One, I think I mentioned it before. I'm just really thankful for the extra time I'm being able to spend with Cindy. That's been really cool. And also, the other thing is I'm thankful for my company. Even though I'm furloughed, I still have health insurance, and getting calls from my boss just because he's concerned about how I'm doing and all that. So yeah, I'm just thankful for that.
That's awesome. Very cool. Jessica, how about you today?
I'm really thankful for our community. We've been sick, and so so many people have brought groceries and checked in, and my nurse friend triaged me from my front window and brought medicine. So just a lot of community support during this quarantine, so we can stay home and stay as keep our germs to ourselves.
That's awesome. That's great. David, how about you?
First, I want to start out by apologizing for missing last week. I just worked a lot of hours last week, unfortunately, and just was so glad to be able to sleep in. I totally spaced on the fact that this was happening, so I apologize for missing it. But I'm extremely grateful for, much like Tom said, the folks that are working to allow me to live a somewhat normal life during this period. Like the folks in the grocery store, you know, we got to eat. There's just no way around that. And although some of us maybe could eat less, you know, I'm in that category. But the bottom line is I'm just really grateful for all of them and putting themselves in harm's way to, you know, all these people walking past them in relatively close proximity to allow us to go on and function and not have there be chaos and panic in the streets and all those things. So, and grateful to the people in my life who reached out to me. I'm a people person, so and I live by myself, so it's important to me to have that contact. And so a lot of people have, you know, taken the time to reach out and communicate and spend virtual time with me, and I'm really, really appreciative of that.
That's awesome, man. That's so cool. Well, guys, thank you all for joining us. I'm guessing we'll have some more people that pop in throughout the session today. We've had that happen throughout the last couple of weeks. So, Tom, why don't you kind of get things kicked off, man, with getting us into chapter 3 today of John Maxwell's book, Put Your Dream to the Test.
Sure, let's do this. So we're dealing with the reality question today. And the question is, am I depending on factors within my control to achieve my dream? Am I depending on factors within my control to achieve my dream? So here's a question for us. Is a dream worth pursuing if it has no chance of becoming reality? That's a good one, isn't it? If it has no chance of becoming reality, is it worth pursuing? So here's the discussion for us. It says you can go as far as your dreams will take you. Do you agree or disagree with that statement, and why? I think we're all muted here.
It sounds good, but I know Maxwell didn't agree with that. You can go as far as your dreams will take you. If your dreams are based in reality, if they're not based in reality, you're just spinning your wheels.
Right. I think also is that are we dreaming enough to propel us forward, right? You can go as far as your dreams will take you. Well, there is some truth to that too, I think. I think if we're willing to dream, because I think that if we dream, we'll actually go further than if we would not dream. Can I get a witness?
Amen.
All right. So, I you know, to pull a scripture out of the hat, where there's no vision, the people perish. Right. So there needs to be a vision or a dream in place so that we can move forward and be effective as we move forward. Right. Welcome, Gary. So here's the wrong mindset, the wrong success mindset here. Question, why are people who build their dreams on reality different from those who have dreams but are not intentional? Anybody?
Dave, it's your turn. I can unmute you.
Dave, let's unmute you, Dave. 1 second. Go ahead, Dave. Now you can talk. Go ahead.
All right, Tom, I just have a question about this because what people, you know, whose reality are we talking? Because I just remember my father being told when he was in 6th grade that at a 6th grade graduation that by his aunt that they're poor people and they lived in a coal mining town and they don't go to college. And so he just, at his point, that just was dead, and that was reality to them. And so I think sometimes you know, if we pursue dreams that people view as being reality or achievable, then a lot of times we cut ourselves very short.
Mm-hmm.
because those around us often, people tell us, oh, you can never do this or you can never do that. And that can become reality if we accept it.
That's true. There's a story in the book that John talks about the monkeys. You remember the story about that? Or maybe I read it in a different book of his, but he was sharing that he put that the scientists put monkeys in this room, and they put some bananas or something up really high for them to get, and as they started climbing this pole to get out to the bananas, they would hose them down, and so after being hosed down several times, those monkeys wouldn't even try to go up. Well, then they took one monkey out and put a new monkey in. And when the new monkey went up to grab the bananas, the other monkeys grabbed them and pulled them back down and said, wait a minute, you got to stay down here. There's danger. There's danger. But that monkey was never told why. And so eventually they replaced all the monkeys, and none of the monkeys would allow any of the monkeys to go up to the top to grab the bananas, but none of them knew why. Right? And so think about that and how, we've lived the way we've lived. We've always done it this way. You might as well get with the program. But as we are all seeing right now, we are experiencing something in our country that we have never experienced before. We're caused to do things that we've never done before. And we have to think outside the box. So that's something to think about. Anybody else on that question? Why are people who build their dreams on reality different from those who have dreams but are not intentional?
I think they're different because people who build their dreams on reality have to examine their dream to determine whether or not it is realistic. And if you do that, if you take the time to invest yourself in your own dream enough to do that, you basically break it down into the steps that allow you to be intentional about achieving your dream. So if you're not being intentional about your dream, it's probably because you haven't really invested yourself in it enough to break it down and to see that it is actually achievable, because it's very hard to be motivated to accomplish something that you yourself don't believe you can achieve, or you don't see a way to do it. It doesn't mean you have all the answers, but if you don't see that there's a possibility of doing it, most people are not going to get excited and behind a process or even look for a process if they don't believe they can achieve it.
That's really good. That's really good. And Jessica said here, people who build their dreams on reality are limited, right?
Yeah.
Bert?
Yeah, let me just go through an exercise with everybody real quick, just to kind of put this into perspective using the example that was in the book that Tom gave us, but also to get your mind thinking differently, okay? Of everybody that's in our group right now, how many of you guys have ever dreamed about opening your own restaurant? Just a dream, okay? Doesn't mean you're gonna do it, just okay, so Dave, Keith, David's never crossed your mind, not a big fan of cooking, that's okay. Gary, you're nodding your head. Jessica, how about you? No, okay.
I love to eat.
You love to eat. You would support all of our restaurants.
I will go to your restaurants. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Okay. So let me just throw this out there, right? So a lot of people prior to a month ago have thought to themselves, man, I would love to open up my own restaurant, do my own restaurant, right? But what is the reality a month ago that stopped us? What are some of the things that prevented us from pursuing that dream, other than the fact that maybe we had a job, right? Or we had other things that we were doing, right? So what stopped you? What has stopped you from opening your own restaurant up to this point?
Lack of funds.
Lack of funds. Okay, good.
Inability to cook.
Yes, that's a very good reason not to open a restaurant. How about you?
College.
I don't know. It's always been like barbecue and stuff, or going into a partner with Sela's restaurant in Berkeley, but it just didn't pan out. So it wasn't a real hot dream. It was just like everybody. Oh, I want to get a restaurant.
Right. Gary, how about you? You said something. We didn't hear you, Gary. What was that?
I said lack of knowledge.
Lack of knowledge. Okay. Okay. So the lack of knowledge we can overcome, right? Everybody has access to Google. If anybody out there who says they can't figure out how to do something nowadays, it's just because they're not putting the effort to learn how to do it, right? I shared the story last week of how my company we were interested in finding a way to develop a way to, find hand sanitizer for all of our caregivers because it's not available anywhere. And I spent hours on the internet trying to find distilleries that were able to ship me, alcohol that we could then use to put into pumps that could be foams. And needless to say, bottom line, last week I had no hand sanitizer. This week I have 16 gallons of alcohol proof that can be used to kill bacteria. And then I couldn't find the hand pumps or the pumps that take the alcohol and foam it to make it usable on your hands. After researching probably 50 different companies, including many in China and other countries, I found a company in Alabama, backwoods Alabama, where it's called soapbox.com. And it's a hobby shop for people that produce hand soaps. But it was like on page 40 of the Google search. And wouldn't you know it, they had 250 bottles and 250 foamers, and I bought all of them, and they'll be here on Monday. So next week, I'm now going to have hand sanitizer. So it just shows you, if you want something bad enough, you can learn how to do it and figure it out, right? But here's what I'm trying to point out, right? So Dave and Keith and myself, I have a dream of opening a restaurant one day called Cav Burger. Cav Burger, CAV. I was in the military, 3rd Squadron, 7th Cav out of Fort Stewart, Georgia. The dream I have, and let me just paint this for you, right? Because dreams have to be beautiful. You have to believe in it, right? So it's a fast casual dining concept where you walk in, the entire restaurant is military themed for the cavalry units that have served our country. There'll be TVs up showing different war movies and videos. When you walk inside, there's a giant wooden table or metal table that goes down the entire middle of the restaurant. That's a community table, which wouldn't be good right now because we have to stay 6 feet apart. But on that table, though, there would be old military maps, and they would be glazed onto the table, and all the kids' meals come with Army men. So you can teach them how to do battles with each other from across the tables. You walk up front to place your order. They give you the old the old metal cafeteria tray, just like we got in the military. And so you walk up and you have burgers on one side and chicken sandwiches on the other. These are the enlisted burgers. These are the officer chicken sandwiches. I want to get a private first class. I want to get a captain. Whatever the deal is, you order it. They give you your slop. They give you your rations. You're given the old tin cups that they had back in World War II. Get your own drink. You sit down. Can you see it? I mean, can you start to see what I'm creating?
You've obviously thought about this a lot.
Absolutely, right? I got recipes, guys. I developed recipes 5 years ago for the blend of the burgers and how we're going to do it. I've created our own seasoning. This is a dream that I've been marinating on for years. But what has always stopped me from doing it is what Travis said, right? What Dave said. It's the funds. I've been in the restaurant industry as a manager. I know the margins are incredibly tight. They're incredibly hard to get off the ground. And the challenge is with a restaurant is that if you don't have customers coming to your restaurant, you fail. But right now is the great equalizer because no one's going to any restaurants right now to sit down and eat. So imagine that, what if I told you in an instance that you could start a business and 80 to 85% of your competitors were not in operation? Would that change your mindset or your sense of urgency to trying to start a new business? Think about that. There are restaurants that closed down a month ago that will never reopen again. Right now, if you need employees for a restaurant, I got news for you. There's 3.2 million restaurant workers that are not working, and they're going to be looking for a place to work once this all comes out again. So when I shared my vision with you, you could hear the passion, right? You could start to see the restaurant in your mind of what it would look like. But if you don't have the experience from the operational side of how to manage front of house staff, how to manage a hostess, how to do all of that, what a great time to start thinking about launching a restaurant and just doing delivery service so that you could actually start your restaurant, start doing the branding. You don't need all the employees, right? You don't need servers. You could probably do it with a half or a quarter of the cook staff in the back. There's probably restaurants that are sitting out there right now. Think about this. There are restaurants that are vacated right now that have all the equipment in them. And there's restaurant owners who have probably told their landlords, we're not going to reopen again. And when that happens, what do? They tend to forfeit the equipment. A lot of times the build out's already done. There can be restaurants that are fully built out with equipment that people that wanted to open a restaurant could step into. They could take over the equipment. They could probably get a break on their rent right now. They could start up. They could do an online marketing campaign through Facebook. Facebook right now is giving free credits to small businesses to do advertising. Wow. You don't even have to do the delivery anymore. You can use Shipt. You can use Uber Eats. You don't have to have vehicles. Think about the opportunities that exist right now to start a small restaurant to get it off the ground to begin building a brand. I'm sharing this with you because the realities and the perceptions that we all had 1 month ago have all changed. The monkeys who were pulling us down a month ago, they're still trying to pull you down, but they don't even know why they're pulling you down anymore. Because guess what? The water cannon that was shooting the monkeys off the fence a month ago probably doesn't even exist anymore. And if the bananas were growing on a tree, I can guarantee you there's probably 3 times the bananas now. This is the time to shift the way we think, to shift our mindset. Bless you, Dave, because there are opportunities that are going to exist now and in the near future that never existed before. And right now we have what? We have millions of Americans just sitting at home. I mean, they're spending time with their families, their kids. That's all awesome and that's great. But we're going to need leaders to emerge and new businesses to emerge and new avenues of revenue creation and job creators to emerge when this is done. And if people are dreaming about it right now, those are the ones who are going to seize the opportunity on the other end of this, not the ones who are going to come out and be like, whoa, what's going on? I'm telling you right now, man, every single person in America is going to need a haircut. 3 or 4 weeks, right? So if I had any desire, I have no desire for this, but
you
man,
have the skills now.
No, I do. Yeah, right.
It's on Facebook.
Yeah, we cut Brady's hair, and I did my dog's hair this week. And trust me, you don't want me doing any hair. But if there's somebody out there today, who ever wanted to start a grooming business for their dog, or they wanted to start a haircutting business, I'm telling you right now is the time to be planting those dream seeds, right? To say, hey, I got a shop opened up, or I'm not doing hair yet, but I want to tell you that the minute that they lift this, I can take online applications. They should be building their website right now. They should be building their dream right now, because when the floodgates open, the ones who are first out of the gate are the ones who are going to seize the opportunity. So there you go, Tom, back to you.
That's great, Bert. I don't know how I can follow that. But let's jump on to the next question. So what is the difference between fantasizers who rely on luck and dream builders who rely on discipline?
Let me throw this out, Tom. I was thinking about that this morning. Is you can have for me personally, I want to lose some weight. I have a goal of walking 10,000 steps every day. And so far I've been doing that for over a week now. But in order to meet that, I have to get up in the morning and walk in the morning. I'm walking midday, and I'm also walking at night. And I noticed that if I miss that morning walk, I won't reach my goal, my 10,000 steps. So in order to reach my overall goal of losing weight, I have to meet my intermediate goal, my 10,000 steps. And in order to do that, I've got to be disciplined enough to get out of bed and do the walking. And if I don't do that, I ultimately won't reach my ultimate goal.
That's right. So it's good that you've got that set up, and we talked about that book by James Clear once again for having habits, and it's nice to say that I want to lose weight, but if we don't have a goal set or something to achieve, like for instance your steps, then we're not going to achieve it. Or just by it being vague, I want to lose weight. Right. Well, that's great. But if I was to say I want to lose this many pounds by this X amount of days or weeks or months, then we actually have something that's in front of us that's attainable. We have something to actually grab onto or focus on, rather than just to throw something out there and then hope that by luck that it will become a reality. And so many people, I think a lot of us are stuck right there, as we just rely on luck, or just an opportunity is just going to open up to us. Ed McMahon is going to knock on the door with the publisher clearinghouse sweepstakes. Of course, he's going to be a ghost. But anyway, he could show up at our door and, here's your check for $500,000 or $1 million or whatever. And all of our dreams will come true after that. But that's not reality. Reality is we've got to do something like Dave. We've got to put one foot in front of the other and become disciplined in the areas that we want to see improvement in our lives. Right?
Yeah.
So it's very important that we learn this word discipline. It's a scary word. We don't like the word all that much because it means work. Right? Discipline means work. We can't coast. We have to be intentional. And this word intentional means we need to live on purpose. We need to do life with purpose and on purpose. It's not easy to do. But again, going back to that book, which has really blessed my life, reading that, the Atomic Habits. But it's if you fall off the bandwagon, get back on it. Right? So don't, I've always shared this back in the day that, if you fall while crossing the street, well, don't just lay there and get rolled over by a car. Get up and continue the path. Continue moving forward. So that's what we need to do. So if we made a failure today, we get back up on the horse or the bike or whatever metaphor you want to use, and we begin to apply the principles that we set for our lives. And do it on a regular basis. And it's powerful. And going back to that book once again, he was sharing with us, if we just change 1%, right? If we just change our outlook or our habits by 1% and do it consistently, with that word discipline, consistently every day, right? For a year, we're going to see a major turn, as opposed to going to a gym and working out for 8 hours for one day and expecting to have huge results. The problem with all of this, guys, with our dreams or whatever, is we want to see results now, right? And of course we do. But that's not necessarily going to be reality for us. But it's going to be over time, right? So when we take the time, if you do a penny a day, right? At the end of the year, you're going to have 356 pennies, okay? But after day 10, you've only got 10 pennies. It's no big deal, right? So it's that making an effort, being disciplined, right? All right, so next question, or let's talk about this. Explain the difference between unhealthy expectations versus a healthy discontent, right? The difference between unhealthy expectations versus healthy discontent. Bert.
Yes. I'm not playing the role of Billy this morning.
Yeah. Billy Bert.
Was there a question, Tom, or you want me to share a story here?
Yeah, no. What's the difference between unhealthy expectations versus a healthy discontent?
Yeah, and just so you guys know, Tom and I, we tell a lot of stories when we do these classes, because we also know that storytelling is incredibly powerful. We're more likely to remember stories than we are to remember, you're probably going to remember that restaurant story I told you for a while because of the way I was able to do it. So let me share another story here. And this is another one that Tom and I like to tell. Imagine you have these expectations that you and your family are going to go on an amazing vacation, right? And you guys load up your vehicle, obviously outside of a pandemic. You load up your vehicle, the station wagon gets loaded up, you get you and your wife, or your spouse and your kids in the vehicle. You guys are ready to go. And all of a sudden you start driving down the highway and you're going down to Florida and you're going to have an amazing vacation. You've taken off a month of work. You're just going to go there and have a great time. And all of a sudden you pull into the state of West Virginia and your car breaks down. So what do? A lot of times people will pull the car over to the side of the road and they'll begin to unpack their car and they'll pitch some tents there on the side of the road. And all of a sudden they start to make camp and they decide, you know what? I think we're just going to live here now. This is where we're going to live. And so they start to set up camp in West Virginia and they start to build their life in West Virginia. And all of a sudden they have to have a new job and everything's changed and life becomes dramatically different. And now all of a sudden people that lived in Michigan, now they're living in West Virginia and this becomes their new life. And they say, well, we're here. This is what life is going to be now. And while that story is absolutely ridiculous, no one would ever do that in real life. We do this all the time when it comes to dreams and goals, right? The goal was vacation in Florida. It went off the trip. Something went wrong a quarter of the way there in West Virginia. And so what did we do? We not only settled for West Virginia, but we decided to live the rest of our lives in West Virginia. Do you see where that story hits home, right? So any dream or any goal, the unhealthy expectation is we're going to drive to Florida. There's going to be no issues and no problems whatsoever when we get there. We'll do our vacation and come home. Where the healthy discontent is, okay, the car broke down in West Virginia. So what do we do to get through this? Well, we got to get the car fixed, right? You pull over into a car shop, you get the car fixed. Maybe you got to wait 2 or 3 days to get the parts, whatever the case is. When the car's fixed, you continue the journey. But because we all don't like waiting for the car to get fixed, because we all don't like having to stay outside of our comfort zone for 2 or 3 days, we decide to take up residency where the dream failed. And so I think that's a perfect example of that balance between unhealthy expectations and healthy discontent. We don't like discontent, right? I mean, come on. We go to the drive-through at Burger King or McDonald's and we order a cheeseburger the way we want it, and we want no pickles with heavy ketchup, and we get heavy pickles and no ketchup, right? And what do? We throw a holy fit, like the world has come to an end. And I guarantee you, nobody just drives off and says, well, this is it. This is what I have to eat. What do? We hand the food back through the window, or we drive back around in the drive-through, or we walk inside and we get it fixed, right? Now, there is a percent of the population that just doesn't look at the food at the window because they just expect their stuff to be perfect all the time. And they get home and they open up their sandwich and they think to themselves, oh, woe is me. This is what I've been dealt in life. And they scrape everything off the burger and they eat it and they just sit there and they sulk eating the wrong burger, or they throw the burger out and don't do anything about it. But the majority of us fix it. That's the mindset we have to have, guys. The mindset we have to have is that we have to have healthy expectations. And a healthy expectation says it's not going to be perfect and it's not going to work. But we have to be okay with discontent because, again, as we said before, discontent is where growth comes from, right? Success does not breed creativity. Failure and hardship breeds creativity. So we have to be open to that mindset to really allow our dreams to foster and to grow. Don't get stuck in West Virginia just because the car breaks down. Have the plan to keep on going.
That's good. That's good. So here's another question to run off of that. It says, what is the difference between people who look for excuses and those who are only interested in results? We always look for excuses when we want to find a way out of something, don't we?
Give an example of a time you guys have recently made an excuse instead of going after results. We can't tell all the stories, guys. You guys have to have some too. Maybe it wasn't you. Maybe it was someone you worked with. Maybe it's someone that you supervise. Just give us an example. We're not using names, but think about this. How often do we go to excuses instead of results?
I don't have any business excuses. Mine is a walking the dog excuse.
Okay,
It's
let's
like,
hear it.
it's like, it's too cold out. The dogs are going to freeze, and Suzanne will take them. But I'll end up going when she's getting dressed and sitting at the door. But it's like, I just don't feel like doing the dogs. But when you go, then you get the exercise, and the dogs are all happy, and the wife's happy and all that.
Absolutely. So the excuse is the dogs are going to be cold, which is hilarious. And they have a built-in coat, for crying out loud.
Hey, settle down.
That's good though. Anybody else?
I will occasionally find myself, just occasionally, not very often. I'm just kidding. Find myself making the excuse of, I don't really have enough time right this minute to do anything effective or really accomplish anything. So I'm not going to use this time to focus on moving forward. I'll just relax or I'll do something else instead of, being realistic and saying, I could make some progress, even if I can't achieve some marked goal I could hold up and show somebody and say, look what I did, or look, or accomplish something I'd be really happy about. I could still make progress because I can't reach a benchmark or I can't do something remarkable with that time. I will talk myself out of investing that time and do something not important.
Yeah. Thanks for being honest, David, because you're absolutely correct, right? We all do that, right? We know we have something that needs to be done, but we're like, I only have an hour, and we know that what we need to do is only going to take 15, 20 minutes. We're like, I'm going to watch TV instead, or I'm not going to do that, or I'm going to go take a nap, or I get it. No, you're absolutely right, David. That was good. Thank you.
I think one of the things is that sometimes there can be legitimate reasons that things aren't achieved in the time frame that you wanted to. For like my company, we had a hurricane that hit South Carolina, and so the profit margins and the things that were expected at that plant in Charleston didn't happen last year because part of the plant was wiped out and people couldn't work, a lot of things. But the excuse, you could use that as an excuse just to say, oh, ultimately that's going to be we're never going to make any profit in Charleston again, or you rebuild and ultimately get back on track and build that, even though there might have been some legitimate reasons why in the immediate you can't do what you wanted to do. But but not giving up, I guess, is and letting that become your West Virginia, your reality.
Right. It's good.
So here's one for us. What's the difference between a victim mentality or a victor mentality? A victim mentality and a victor mentality.
Well, just going back to that same example I just used, a victim mentality would say, hey, our plant was hit, where people can't work, we're just going to give up. The victor mentality would say, hey, what does it take to rebuild? What does it take to get back on track? And what does it take for us to achieve our original goals?
Or to change with the times, right? Or to change with the seasons, like we're experiencing right now. You have to shift, have that, as opposed to have that finite mindset, that infinite mindset, right? Where anything is possible. We just need to shift with the times, because what we have isn't working anymore.
Yep.
Right. And that's the crazy part.
Yep.
We might need to reinvent the wheel. Okay. That's just where we're at.
Yep.
We're in a different time, a different season. And our governor is suggesting maybe 60, 70 days of this stuff.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. So what are we going to do with that? How can we make a difference? And this this may or may not be the season to make money, but it may be the season to chart the course, to begin building, to begin laying out the pieces of the puzzle to be put together. And so we can't allow, with this victim mentality, to say, oh, look what's happened to us. And, we're all in the same boat. But look, as Bert said, it's going to be the leaders that step up and lead and take the initiative that is going to see the difference when we come out of this thing. And how are we making a difference in the lives of people? We've heard that expression from John Maxwell: people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so how much better would it be for us to show care to people during this time that we're going through? And then coming out of this, who are people going to come to? Who are they going to rely on, or maybe buy services from? I think we need to be a part of the victor mentality as opposed to the victim mentality. Can I get a witness?
Yeah.
Amen.
Charles Swindoll has a famous quote. He says, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react, right? So I think that's a victor mentality. The victim mentality would say life is 90% what happens to you and 10% how you react. In other words, you have no control over what's happening coming to you. And here's the deal. Nobody in the world has any control over this pandemic. Nobody does, right? So you're right. Either you're going to sit at home and say, woe is me. And I get it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there's not things, that there aren't victims of what's happening. People are losing jobs. I get that. That's all real. And I'm not saying that that's not happening. What I'm saying is the mindset that we allow ourselves to keep during this time is going to impact not just how we are today and tomorrow. You're going to see people with the wrong mindset that emerges out of this. It's not only going to impact them today and tomorrow, but it's going to impact the next generation of their family that comes out of this. So we need to really be careful that we're holding on to the right mindset coming out of this. Like, no one can say, oh man, I had it so rough during the pandemic of 2020. Well, we all have it rough during the pandemic of 2020, just in different ways. Just like coming out of the Great Depression. Like my grandmother, when she was still alive, used to tell stories all the time about how they would live off of tomato and mayonnaise sandwiches. And I used to think as a kid, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Who would eat a tomato and mayonnaise sandwich? But here's why they did. Because they grew their own tomatoes in the backyard. They made their own bread and they made their own mayonnaise, right? So now I was talking about this just 2 days ago with my wife. I said, I understand now why they lived off of tomato and mayonnaise sandwiches, because that's the mindset they had. But they didn't have the mindset, Great Depression, that's it, we're done, we're all just going to die, right? They did what they needed to do to get through it, to make it happen, to make sure their kids were going to have a life after them, and so on and so forth. So we have to hold on to that mentality. It doesn't mean it's not going to be hard. Guys, I can tell you there were 2 times in this past week that I literally sat in my office and I was in tears because of what was happening around me. And I couldn't control it. I couldn't control what was coming at me with clients who were testing positive for COVID-19 and caregivers that I had to put in quarantine. And I have no control over that. My heart broke for them, right? My heart broke for them in those moments. And after I had my moment, okay, I then had to talk to myself. I had to say, Bert, you can't control this. You can't control this. And then I would take time and I would pray and I would give it to the one I know who can control it, who does have control of it. And I would literally have to give myself a pep talk to get myself ready to go at it again, to lead my staff, to lead my team, because I was not going to allow what was happening around me to impact my mindset. It's okay to have those moments, right? It's okay to go through those moments, but it's not okay to stay there. You can't stay in those moments. And that's where the victim mentality, I think, tends to set in is when you begin to live and wallow in your own self-pity and your own despair. And that's when sometimes you need to reach out to other people that can pull you up out of that hole to get you thinking again. So just guard against that during these times. You're going through the same thing that millions of other Americans and people across the globe are going through. You're not in this alone. So don't think that way. And then keep on pushing through.
I wanted to add to that the importance of having resources for your mental health and
Mm-hmm.
those readily available when you need them, and keeping the goals in place with your resources will work with that. I think similar as the situation for us, I'm a mom, so it's easy to my resources or reason for not staying in victim mentality are living, breathing children to carry on the reality that this is not something that is going to last forever, and to get us out of that victim mentality and changing it to victor mentality, and looking at ways we can help in others and grow in this time that we have. I agree, it's a lot of desire to control, I think, is a huge factor to acknowledge and recognize what you can control and what you cannot. And once you have that basis of knowledge, then you can go off of those internal resources to external resources and what you can do to grow in this time. And things like this class, for example, is an external resource on what to work with.
That's really
great.
good.
That's great, Jessica.
I can use Dr. Tom as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Changing the music in the changing times. If the church changes, does he give up or does he change his music?
Right.
Myself, I left the church for 7.5 years. When I came back, I didn't jump right back on stage. I had to figure out what Tom was doing to change the way I'm doing.
It's good.
David, did you have something?
I do. I'd like to just share kind of a quick epiphany I just had. So at work, I sorry, it was all clear in my head a second ago. At work, things are difficult. You know, we have a mission to accomplish, and it is not acceptable that we don't succeed. We can't just quit because things got tough. So we've had to change the way we do things and take some extraordinary measures that we have never had before. It never crossed anybody's mind, okay, we're just going to all go home and not do this anymore. We just can't think that way. Yeah, we've stopped doing a few things that are risky, that it's risk versus rewards kind of a thing, but it never occurred to anybody that we're just not going to do this. We're not going to show up. We're not going to provide our service. We just can't think that way. And what hit me was, I don't think that way about my own dreams. Instead of doing whatever it takes, it's like, well, it's difficult right now, so I'm not going to, I'm just going to let it go for a while. Or, I mean, I don't like consciously decide that, but I see that that's exactly what I do. I don't have the same mentality that, you know what, it doesn't matter that I got thrown a curveball. I have to figure out how to hit that curveball, or, you know, would do whatever it takes to sidestep or overcome whatever it is has come at me to make it difficult. I don't have that same determination. Anyway, I don't know how much that might apply to you all, but it just kind of hit me that I just don't have that same thought process about my own dreams, and I should.
That's awesome. That's really good.
Yeah, that is powerful.
Mhm.
You know, a sidebar analogy to that is there. You know, we as parents, we're very particular on who our children hang out with, right? And what they do, and what kind of influence they're having on our children's lives. But how often do we take a reflection of our own life and who is making an impact into us, or what kind of attitude did they have? Or are they helping our dream grow, or are they hindering it? And so the same thing goes with our thoughts, right? We want to tell other people, you know, this is how you do A, B, C, and D, but we're not willing to tell ourselves the necessary things that we need to hear. Perhaps coaching is needed in that mindset, but regardless, we've got to surround ourselves with the right positive affirmations, whether it be the influence of people in a like-minded group like we have right here, right now, or whether it be just things that we post around our house that encourage us to continue to water that seed of the dreams that we have. And as Bert was saying just a little while ago, man, we're in a fantastic moment of history. You know, I never thought about, like Bert was talking about just a moment ago, about how there are restaurants like already retrofitted, you know, already ready to go, and no one to run them, right? And so how many other things are just sitting out there like that? Or how many grants or you know, free things, or very limited things that are out there for us right now that we can actually tap into and use to propel our dream. I mean, or just to sit back and say, okay, what does our nation need right now? Right? Like the brewery company did in regards to the hand sanitizer, right? They just went to work, and they were the forefront of this whole thing. And so what are we going to do with what we've been given? Okay, so let's look further. It says read the fine print. So what is the fine print when it comes to your dream? What is the fine print? So letter A, how long will the journey take?
So think about these questions, guys, when it comes to your personal dreams, right? Because we need to start talking about some of your dreams. Tom and I can talk about our dreams till we're blue in the face, but we're here to help you guys. So think about this, the journey. How long is it going to take for your dream to start to see it manifest? How have you thought about it? What do you think?
Realistically, I should be able to see some significant progress in mine within a year if I apply myself.
Awesome. Good. Who else?
What was the question again, Bert? Can you repeat it?
Yeah. How long will the journey take when it comes to your dream?
You know, there are different dreams that I have, but on one particular that I've been thinking about this week, I'm with Dave that within a year I should see some significant changes. I'll just tell you, I have a piano currently sitting in my kitchen because no one can come over to help me move it. And Bert suggested that I just burn it. Well, I can't burn something in my kitchen. That wouldn't work. But I have someone willing to give me free lessons. I have the piano. And so it's finally going to take time for me to start learning to play, which I've wanted to do for years. And I think within a year, if I apply myself, that I should be able to, to learn at least to some degree. So
And think of how much better the acoustics are going to be in your kitchen.
that's right. Well, hopefully at some point we'll move it out of my kitchen. So,
Okay, awesome.
but I'm
Anybody else?
reminded of that
Yeah.
every day. Every time I go into the kitchen, I'm reminded.
You have to walk around the piano.
Right.
Dave, you
Yeah,
could
too
open
bad-
your restaurant and just have live music right in your kitchen.
There you go.
That's awesome.
For me, I don't think it's a time frame as much as a mental availability. I could start now if I wanted to.
Okay.
How long do you want it to take? It's up to you. If you want it to happen right away, you can make it happen right away. If you want to ponder on it, it's going to take longer.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good, Gary. And that actually does kind of lead into some of the other questions too, because you're right, we may want to speed it up, but as we walk down that journey, sometimes there's going to be some things on that path that we need to deal with, which leads to letter B, which is what are some of the obstacles that we have to overcome? So for, Dave and David and who said a year, what are the obstacles you think you're going to see in the next year? Then for Keith and Gary and Jessica, what are some of the obstacles that might be there? Maybe there's not a time frame, but and Jessica, you just shared an obstacle, right? You shared an obstacle with us. So what are some of the obstacles that you guys have to overcome on this journey?
For me, the number one obstacle is my own head. And that's honestly, the rest of it is the doing part of it is not that difficult. I am a planner by nature. I am a strategizer by nature. I do that really well. I don't always execute, and that's because of my head. And if I can concentrate on that and my mindset, and like I said, that was kind of an epiphany that I don't think that way in my personal life. At work, it's like I'm all about the mission. I'm all about my duty. I'm all about making it happen regardless. Taking the risks I have to take to get the job done. But I don't do that in my personal life. And why is that? So that's, for me, that is the big obstacle. Everything else I can, I'm sure there will be things that crop up, but they don't bother me. Like I'm not concerned about that, because when those come, if my head is in the right place and my heart's in the right place, then those solutions will come.
So David, let's if you don't mind, let's just take a moment with that. So what's one of the thoughts in your head that keep you from pursuing your dreams?
Well, I'm going to get real personal here, so I hope you guys are good with that.
Yeah.
I have struggled for a number of years before this. It hasn't been a big issue in my life for a few years, but with my own self-worth. And I haven't believed that I was worth my dreams, that I could accomplish my dreams, any of that. And it's been, I won't go into all the details, but over probably about 3 years ago, that became a much less of a significant issue in my life. I became much less of a people pleaser. But I'm still learning how to dream. I'm still learning how to it's like something I put on the back burner, and I didn't, it wasn't a skill, I guess, or a habit that I invested in because it wasn't of any value. It didn't have a place in my life. Now it does, and I am still working on wrapping my head around. It's okay to dream, and I am worth having dreams for, just for me. It doesn't. I was really good about dreaming for other people and providing for other people, but not so much about myself. And there's a big difference between that and selfishness. And I didn't understand that, but now I do. And because what benefits me also benefits other people. So anyway, I'm not sure I actually answered your question.
Oh yeah, you did very much
Awesome.
so. That was very good, and you probably hit the nail on the head for most of us in this room, right? We always deal with that self-worth and you know, or I can't do it, or you know, all these things. But if we could perhaps ask this question to ourselves, what if, right? If we really post that question, what if this was to happen? What if I was able to, you know, make this dream come true? If we could believe that possibility, it would cause us to get out of bed, to take action to those 10,000 steps that Dave was talking about a little while ago. It would cause us to wake up in the morning with a sense of purpose, right? Because we've got a goal, right? We've got a dream to fulfill. And we know we're not going to achieve it just by sitting back and watching the days go by. So if we can get out of the way, if we can allow begin to see ourselves as we were meant to be seen, that we are valuable, that we are unique. You know, we talk about the fingerprint, right? There's no other fingerprint like mine on the face of the planet, right? And so I am unique. I may not be as good as so-and-so, right? But who cares? I have a purpose, right? Martin Luther King said, I have a dream, right? And he shared that dream, and you know, it still resonates today. We still talk about it today. But he stepped forward and proclaimed that he had a dream. And you know, and so we don't know what tomorrow is going to hold for us. But what can we do today? I think it was Jessica who said just a little while ago that we need to take the moment now, right? Today's the day. And let's take advantage of that. Bert?
Yeah. What about disappointments, guys? Because we talked about, you know, it's about mindset. And I realize that we may not be able to get through this whole chapter today, and that's okay. But I want to talk about disappointments right now, because we all know that we handle disappointments differently and different types of disappointments. And sometimes there are disappointments for us that could be, they're kind of killers, right? They're dream killers, right? So what are some of the disappointments? First of all, how well do you personally handle disappointments, and what types of disappointments would be most detrimental to your dream? And I want everybody to answer this. So think about that for a minute, and then the first one who's ready, jump in. I do want all of us to answer that question. How well do you handle disappointment, and which disappointments will be the most difficult for you to endure and overcome?
I'll start. I handled the disappointment different depending on the whether it impacts my kids or not. But typically I feel and ingest all the failure and the disappointment for a time frame. Then I take the perspective of what can I learn and grow from said disappointment, and sometimes I stay in West Virginia and restart things over. Depends. But I what was the other part of the question?
Yeah, which disappointments are the biggest threat to you? Which ones would just totally knock you down and make the dream like it's not going to happen?
how do I words? Sorry.
It's okay.
Financially declining in my dream. If I invest in my dream financially and it
Mhm.
doesn't work out, that's more devastating
Okay.
for me.
Sure. Okay. Excellent. Thanks for sharing, Jessica. Who's next?
You know, I don't handle disappointment very well, but like she said, the financial aspect is the strongest in my life
Mm-hmm.
that I have a hard time with.
Okay. Thanks, Gary. That's good. David, you're gonna say something?
Yeah, for me, it's whenever someone, it's always person related. The difficult ones, when someone lets me down, or I feel like they've let me down. Sometimes that's my imagination, even because I have an expectation that's unreasonable of them. But the biggest thing is, instead of just looking at it at its face value, and again, I'm getting better about this, but I used to take that as a reflection on me personally, or their desire to be in relationship with me personally. And while I used to let that get me down and really bother me, I've gotten to the place where, you know, I could react to it in a more mature manner. But what I did with that was instead I stuffed it down inside and just said, I'm not going to get upset and angry about that. Instead of acknowledging the anger, being upset about it, and then moving on, I would look mature on the surface, but really was not.
Mm-hmm.
And so the biggest thing is just not letting other people's decisions impact my dreams, or impact my goals, or their lack of interest in my dreams and goals.
Right. That's good.
Being a huge factor.
That's good. Keith, Dave?
Well, I think I've told you this story before, but there one day in particular that I think of my biggest disappointment was I thought I was getting promoted. Things were going extremely well at work. And I got called to a meeting, and HR was there, but not to promote me, but to release me. And it was a devastating day, but I think that things ended up, turning around, and actually ended up in a better situation. So overall, I think I handle it well. I know, of course, it's hard for a while, but I think I've got support and a foundation that's helped me to learn to to carry on when there are disappointments, and to refocus.
Good. Keith, how about you?
And disappointments in the business world is like when I lose a sale.
Mm-hmm.
I try to evaluate what happened, what went wrong. Did I not have a relationship with these guys? Was I not meeting their needs? I tend to get over it pretty quick because I just can't dwell on that. The disappointments that come with personal, with family, it's kind of a bummer because, with the kids, you want to fix something and you can't. And so I kind of dwell on that a little bit longer, and then realize, like, just stay out of it. There's nothing I'm going to do.
Right. So I'll share a story with you guys. Jim Collins is another, motivational writer and speaker, and he shares a story about the 20-mile march. Have you guys heard about the 20-mile march?
No.
No, but I remember you doing a 15-mile march.
Yeah. So these two explorers, they basically were going to race. It was Robert Falcon Scott and Rowan Amiston. They wanted to be the first people to get to the South Pole. And so what they did is they were going to race to the South Pole. And so they both landed similar distances from the South Pole, but different parts of Antarctica. And they had their teams assembled, and each one put together their plan of how they were going to get to the South Pole first. And basically, Scott's determination for this was that he was going to get there as fast as possible. He was going to drive his team as hard as he possibly could. They were going to go as far as they could every single day, just keep pushing it. And they wanted to get there. And so they started out, and Scott's team, by the end of the first week, they had covered a ton of ground. The problem, though, is that the dogs were not handling it well. The animals they had with them were getting sick because they were pushing them so hard. They found that because they were pushing so hard that they were consuming food and resources faster. And the bottom line is this: by the time they got into week 2, almost everybody on the team was sick, and they had to hunker down for a period of 4 days to give everyone a chance to recover. The other team decided that they were only going to approach the journey 20 miles every day. That's it. So if the sun was out and it was warm, they were going to go 20 miles and stop. Whether it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon or whether it was 8 o'clock at night, they were only going to do 20 miles a day. And so when the weather was really bad, they just did 20 miles. When the weather was really good, they just did 20 miles. And so when it was all said and done, the team that did 20 miles, the entire team made it to the South Pole. Nobody died, all their animals stayed alive, and they still had resources when they got there. The other team that was just going as much as they could every single day without having a set goal, they lost 4 people. 4 people died on the journey. They lost animals. They were out of resources 2 days before they arrived. Of course, they were disappointed that when they got there, that they had lost by almost 48 hours. So the purpose of the story is to share that it's that 20-mile march. There's going to be disappointments, right? You're going to have those days when you're like, man, I don't think we can make it. I don't think I can do it. But if your goal is to just do 20 miles, you can stop at 20. No one is setting other expectations for you. You don't have to go 50 miles in a day. And that also gives you permission on the really good days, on the weeks when things are going really well, you only have to go 20 miles. And so it gives you that opportunity to breathe and to recover. And like David was talking about, and David, I get this, you have a job that's demanding. You have to perform at a high level every single day. I can only assume that you have to, in some ways, be a different person at work than maybe you are at home because of your leadership role, right? I mean, you don't come home and bark orders to your wife or your kids like you might when you're at work. And if you do, God bless them. And if not, anyways. But the same concept has been like in the military, right? When you go to work in the military, you have to do your job. Come hell or high water, you have to do your job. You have to perform. You have to make it happen. And then when you get home, you just kind of, right? And you want to have that mental break. And jobs can be like that. So if you just give yourself permission to do that 20-mile march and to accomplish the same amount every day, whether that means, Dave, 10,000 steps every day, right? If you came into this meeting today and said, man, I'm going to do 20,000 steps a day. Well, I mean, most of us would say, Dave, it's probably not going to be realistic, right? Well, we may not say that to your face, but we'd be thinking that. But the truth is the fact that you know that you have to get up and walk 3 times a day and you have the time to do it right now. But when you go back to work, is it going to be easy to do 10,000 steps a day? Or no, right? Absolutely. So right now, while you have the opportunity, you're taking advantage of it, but then you don't want to beat yourself up, when you do go back to work that you can't get 10,000 steps in. So just set realistic daily or weekly goals that you can achieve, because when you have that 20-mile march in place, disappointments come, but you can handle them better when you don't have the expectations that it all has to be done right now. And that's a really good mindset to have. Tom, I want to go to the next page, if that's okay with you, just to keep this moving. Does that go with you?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't we talk about the strength portion of it? You want to lead us in that discussion with the is your dream built on your real strengths?
Yeah. So, by the way, on that note that Bert was just talking about, just showing up is very important. Dave, Travis, just putting your shoes on, right, is important. Sometimes we talk about the 10,000 steps, but we don't even put our shoes on. So someone that wants to work out at the gym, maybe this is something I read, showing up at the gym and just staying for 5 minutes and then going home. Well, that seems ridiculous, but What if I consistently did that? Okay, well, I've been consistent in being here um, every day. So maybe this time I'm going to stick around and spend 10 minutes here or spend 15 minutes here. But the idea is showing up. The idea is taking the time to think about your dream. The idea is doing something, putting yourself in position. And if we say that we have to walk 10,000 steps when we've not even walked 5,000, well, just showing up is going to make that big difference. But showing up consistently, as we've been talking about, as Bert was talking about, the 20 miles a day, right? Showing up and doing that little thing can open up for so much more. So let's go on. So why do you suppose it is important to build on your strengths as opposed to building on your weaknesses?
Good one.
Why do you suppose it's important to build on your strengths as opposed to building on your weaknesses?
Your strengths will just come natural.
Well, and that ties into the question before too. If you know what your weaknesses are, you can get help with your weaknesses. There's always people or things that can help you with your weaknesses. And if you focus on those, you're going to be slowing yourself down. You're going to be handicapping yourself in a sense. So if you focus on your strengths and get help and some assistance with your weaknesses and don't worry about your weaknesses, you're going to make a lot more progress.
Well, there's a quote that says, focus on your strengths and staff your weaknesses.
Right.
Yep.
Delegate.
Yes. But too often we say, well, I'm not efficient in this area, right? Simon Sinek, he was saying how he was, challenged by this other guy, and he envied him or basically hated him because he was everything that he wanted to be. And then they ended up on stage together, and Simon Sinek found out this other gentleman wanted to be everything that Simon was. Right? And so a lot of times we focus on our weaknesses as opposed to our strengths.
Yeah.
What can we do? What difference can we make today? How can we work on our dream today? What portion of that dream can we work on today? Right? We may not be able to do all the parts, but that's what team effort is all about, right? And again, I'm thinking about that television show, Undercover Billionaire.
Mm-hmm.
If you've not watched it, you got to watch it. It'll really give you some insight. But this guy, once again, I know we've shared the story, but he was dropped in the middle of Pennsylvania with $100, a cell phone, and a truck. And that's it. No contacts in the phone, no other credit cards, no nothing. And his mission was to build a business that was worth $1 million in 90 days. Right? And so that's some real hustling right there. But he wanted to do it to prove that the American dream is still alive.
Mm-hmm.
And day by day, he had to do something, right? He had to show up. He had to do something to open that opportunity up. And when he did one thing, it opened up the door to another thing.
Yeah.
And then he began to staff his weaknesses. And it's just a hero story, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I'm very inspired by that. So it's important that we build on our strengths as opposed to building on our weaknesses, right? Not that we don't have to improve in some areas of mannerisms and communication, how we deal with people and communicate with people. We've got to work on those things, but focus on your strengths. So number one on your paper there, building on your strengths activates the law of least effort. Okay, building on your strengths activates the law of least effort. Okay, so what's the law of least effort? what's the least effort, right? We've already shared that. It's showing up.
Mhm.
Anybody else? Okay, so we've been using Dave Travis a lot today. Thank you for being our guinea pig.
No problem.
But in taking these steps, right? Again, the least effort is putting on your shoes, right? That's the very least effort. But if we don't take the initiative to put on the shoes, right, then we're not putting ourselves in position for success. So, so how will it affect your life, Dave, if you put on your shoes?
Now I can't go outside. It's too cold to go outside barefoot. So it allows me to go outside. It allows me to have more endurance because my feet won't hurt when I'm walking because I've got the rubber soles. It just gives me some of the tools that I need in order to meet my goals.
Right. And the number one goal is that you put your shoes on. Okay. So the shoes is just a metaphor, really. It's showing up, right? It's putting getting first things first, right? We've heard that before. Putting first things first. And we need our shoes on before we can walk 10,000 steps. So how will it affect?
It puts you in a position to succeed.
Absolutely.
If you don't put your shoes on, you're not going to succeed. You're not going to walk your steps.
But how many would agree that putting on our shoes is an easy task? Right? I mean, unless obviously you have apathy.
For most of us.
Yes.
My father-in-law, seriously, it's because of physical things, it's a very big deal for him to put on his shoes. But when he does, it's a good thing because he's overcome that.
So that might be a big challenge for him, obviously, bigger than the rest of us. But it affects our life in many ways because it again, as David was saying, we're set up for success, right? Okay, so number 2, building on your strengths enables consistently. Yep.
And I guess I still don't understand. The law of least effort is showing up, or what? I guess I still don't understand.
No, the actual book says this. If you read it, it says the law of least effort works when you follow your own nature and what is natural for you. Okay, when you follow your own, in other words, it's something that you already do well, you already possess the strengths. That is the law of least effort. Doing those things that come natural for you.
Yep.
Okay, so if you like, if you have to, if it's not something that comes natural, if you have to have other resources that you need to bring in to surround you with, that's not going to be one of your strengths. Now, one of your strengths may be finding other people, right? For example, in the company that I own, I know that I have a very specific, and this is part of the problem, and my apologies for skipping a whole section where it says, how do you respond to reality, knowing your strengths and weaknesses, right? If you don't know your strengths and weaknesses, you're not going to know what the law of least effort is for you, right? I know what I'm really good at work and what I'm not good at work. And so I always make it a point to hire people that have strengths that I don't have, right? My general manager is very much matter of fact, get it done. The challenge with that, her weaknesses might be that she doesn't always show great empathy, right? I'm pretty good at showing empathy to my employees, almost sometimes to a fault, where I will go out of the way for them. And I know as a business owner running a larger company, I can't do that. It feels good and they love it, but they can't feel like they can come to the owner at any time with any little thing when you have a chain of command that's set up, when you have managers in place. So I've hired a general manager where she's strong where I'm weak, and I'm strong where she's weak. Where if I hired a GM who was just like me, we would have a bunch of weaknesses that weren't being addressed. Does that make sense? Yep. So your strengths activate the law of least effort, meaning now I can go to work and there's a bunch of stuff I don't have to worry about because I have somebody that's in place that's handling all of those issues for me. So that's the key, is flowing in what you're naturally good at, and doing those things that give you the path to least resistance. That's how you can build on that law for success. Does that make sense, Dave?
Yeah. Just quickly, it reminded me of a story I heard about Henry Ford, who, when the board of directors was trying to take the company away from him, say that he was inept. And in court, he pointed out that, you know, the skills of all the people on the board. And he said, that's why I hired them, is because I don't have those skills, but they do.
That's right.
It's exactly that.
Absolutely. That's good. That's good. Cool. Tom, you want number 2?
Yes. So building on your strengths enables consistently good results. That's what it says in your book. Building on your strengths enables consistently good results. So what are the effects of consistently building on your strengths? What are the results?
Accomplish what you set out to do.
Simple enough, right?
Yep.
Progress, steps accomplished towards your goals, your dreams.
Good.
I'm thinking though, and it's maybe I missed it, but we all have to know what our strengths are. Really sit down, soul search on what our strengths are and our weaknesses.
Absolutely. And John, in one of his books, maybe it's this one even, that tells us to sit down and actually write down what our strengths are. Write down where you're proficient, right? Where you can succeed, or where you succeed most of the time, right? And so writing those things down, and then, you know, you can list your weaknesses, but too often we go to our weaknesses as our strong point, and we need to focus on our successes, right? Things that we're able to do, things that are in our power to do. That's where we need to start. We need to list that out and to where we can see it. And David, this has really helped you and the rest of us in regards to self-worth. If we can begin to see the things that we're good at, right? Because we always focus on the things that we're bad at.
Right.
But you know what? We can't do a lot about the things that we're bad at, but we can do a lot with the things we're good at because we already know how to do it. I was talking to my wife the other day about our oldest son. When you talk about Civil War and all of that, man, he could just give off facts and figures and the Revolutionary War and all that stuff. He could just go right into it and talk about it. But when you're talking about something completely different, then he has really nothing to say. But you and I can both agree that when there's something that you are really passionate about, something that you know something about, Keith, if we talked about, the phone systems and things of that nature, man, you'll just perk right up. You got so much to say and so much to talk about. But if we talked about, maybe World War I, you may not have much to say about it, right? Because you don't know that much about it. You might, but, you get the point. So let's focus on our strengths, because that's what's going to have the highest dividends of payoff. Let's look at number 3, and I think we're coming to a head here. So number 3, building on your strengths gives you the highest return. Building on your strengths gives you the highest return. All right. So let's take a second here, as we just talked about you listing your strengths. Everyone share what one of your strengths are. What is one of your strengths?
Mine would definitely be building relationships to get the most out of people.
Good. It's good.
Anybody else? Strength. One strength.
Go ahead, David.
I would echo a similar sentiment. I'm pretty good with relating to people and hearing them, and bridging communication gaps that way. And I'm also very good at organizing and planning. Those are some strong points for me.
Good.
I think that everybody here is probably all really good. Our strengths are people skills. That's why we're here. We all have the ability to deal with people, to figure out people, and deal with them accordingly. Like, you know, Bert Ann's a get down to business type person, and you are also, absolutely. But so you know how to deal with it, and then on somebody who's more empathy side, then you know how to deal with them. So we have to learn how to do that. I think most of us probably have got that down, so we know how to deal with people and establish good relationships.
Jessica, you got something? A strength?
I'm very versatile. I can jump in and fulfill needs that not yet been met.
That's good.
Well, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this one up for this week, just because we want to end the recording, but we want you guys to stick around just for a second for just a quick conversation. But remember, you can check us out, realleadershipcompany.com, for upcoming events. We're probably going to be continuing something like this moving forward on Saturdays. We'll post it on our website once we have that down. But join us on Facebook for the discussion. We're going to be sharing portions of this video so people can watch it and be part of the conversation as well. But we just encourage you guys to keep on following us, realleadershipcompany.com. Thanks so much for joining us today.